1, 2, 3. I've been running from the pain, trying not to feel the same, but it's a shame that we miss again. See, my confidence is shaking and my heart is feeling vacant, so you try to fill it in. You said I could fix the broken in your heart. You would save and dark.
Environmental economics is an area of economics that studies the financial impact of environmental policies. Environmental economists perform studies to determine the theoretical or empirical effects of environmental policies on the economy. This field of economics helps users design appropriate environmental policies and analyze the effects and merits of existing or proposed policies. The basic argument underpinning environmental economics is that there are environmental costs of economic growth that go unaccounted in the current market model. These negative externalities, like pollution and other kinds of environmental degradation, could then result in market failure. Environmental economists thus analyze the costs and benefits of specific economic policies, which also involves running theoretical tests or studies on possible economic consequences of environmental degradation. Environmental economists are concerned with identifying specific problems to be rectified, but there can be many approaches to solving the same environmental problem. If a state is trying to impose a transition to clean energy, for example, they have several options. The government can impose a forcible limit on carbon emissions, or it can adopt more incentive-based solution like placing quantity-based taxes on carbon emissions or offering tax credits to companies that adopt renewable power resources. All of these strategies rely, to varying degrees, on state intervention in the market. Therefore, the degree to which this is acceptable is an important political factor in determining environmental economic policy. This debate is also known as prescriptive, in which the government would manually control carbon emission versus market-based. The most prominent example of the use of environmental economics is the cap and trade system. Companies purchase carbon offsets from developing countries or environmental organizations to make up their carbon emissions. Another example is the use of a carbon tax to penalize industries that emit carbon. Details of the tax, which is currently under discussion, are being worked out. Corporate average fuel economy or the CAFE regulations are another example of environmental economics at work. These regulations are prescriptive and specify the gallons per mile of gas of cars for car makers. They were introduced during the 1970s to promote fuel efficiency in an era of gas shortage. The most prominent example of the use of environmental economics is the cap and trade system. Companies purchase carbon offsets from developing countries or environmental organizations to make up their carbon emissions. Another example is the use of a carbon tax to penalize industries that emit carbon. Details of the tax, which is currently under discussion, are being worked out. Corporate average fuel economy or the CAFE regulations are another example of environmental economics at work. These regulations are prescriptive and specify the gallons per mile of gas of cars for car makers. They were introduced during the 1970s to promote fuel efficiency in an era of gas shortage. Role of environmental policy. Environmental policies must include a pledge of continually measures and improve environmental performance, and many include a promise to seek ways to reduce energy, limit fuel consumptions, lessen emissions, prevent pollution, reduce greenhouse gases, and reduce potable water consumptions, or an infinite number of other appropriate metrics. Then, when measured, can show improvement in environmental sustainability. Goals of environment policy. The environment policy focuses on all those issues which are affecting our environment. These policies are aimed at protecting natural resources and the environment. The environment procedures are not limited to air or water pollution. They cover all such issues which are directly or indirectly affecting the environment. Sustainable living requires a lifestyle shift that must be adopted by individuals, businesses, and government entities. Simply recycling, when we think of it, it is not enough to change the destructive patterns that have already begun to take place as a result of overconsumptions. A sustainable lifestyle takes into account eating, transportation, socialization, energy use, waste disposal, and more. Simply put, being sustainable is meeting the needs of present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. As long as 1/5 of the population continues to use this huge majority of resources, we are not living sustainably. Sustainability is not just an environmental issue. It is also an economic one. Not only does 1/5 of the population have access to most of the planet's environmental resources, we have access to most of the planet's economical resources, including education and healthcare. 60% of the global south do not have access to basic sanitation, and 25% do not have adequate housing. We have more jobs, more land, and more information available to help us making decisions about our health and our families than most of the world. Unless standards of living change, inhabitants of developing nations will continue to be plagued by poverty and malnourishment, while their populations continue to grow. Sustainability can be part of the answers of alleviating poverty worldwide. Sustainability doesn't just mean reducing energy use and emissions. It means increasing access to jobs, promoting responsible trade, and decreasing poverty rates.